The ancient human Dreadnought fleet rumbled to life with a deafening roar, shaking the entire solar system and striking terror into the hearts of the galactic Ocampa forces gathering above Earth to crush the last pockets of human resistance. As the mammoth human ships sprang forth from their long slumber and their horrifying weapons primed for battle, the Ocampa commanders ordered an immediate retreat, realizing this primitive race calling themselves humans weren't so primitive after all. Ex-soldier Nolan Carter never thought he'd be pulling the alarm on a full-scale alien invasion when he took a measly security job at Earth's main spaceport after the wars. The sight of sleek Ocampa vessels touching down sent his instincts screaming. He'd heard the rumors, the horror stories of a ruthless advanced alien species conquering star system after star system and enslaving whole civilizations. Bursting into the command center, Nolan frantically relayed what he saw. The officers dismissed his warning. Earth's long-range scanners and planetary shields were infallible after centuries of peace and technological advancement, they said. No alien menace would dare attack humanity's homeworld. Ocampa ships visiting was probably just a diplomatic envoy, part of the new intergalactic alliance. The complacent fools. Nolan's worst fears were soon realized as reports hit of a savage Ocampa assault on a human colony. Brutal invaders slaughtering families, toppling cities, seizing control. The pacifist government finally mobilized Earth's military as the terrible truth became clear. The Ocampa intended to subjugate the human race and claim its territories. But centuries of peace had dulled humanity's fangs. No match for the technologically superior Ocampa war machine that soon descended upon world after human world, bombarding them into ashes and bones. Colony after colony fell before the unstoppable onslaught as people cried out for salvation. All hope seemed lost as Ocampa forces entered the solar system, smashing aside Earth's feeble defenses. Nolan knew there was only one chance now, however slim. A hidden fleet of ancient dreadnoughts, locked away for generations as a last resort for humanity's darkest hour. Powerful relics from a bygone age of war and expansion, maintained in secret for a crisis just like this. Only Nolan and a few others even knew of their existence. If he could find them, reawaken them, maybe, just maybe, humanity could turn the tide and avoid extinction. Failure is not an option. Capture is not an option. If the dreadnoughts aren't lit within days, if Nolan's desperate mission doesn't succeed, the human race will be wiped out or enslaved under the ruthless talons of the Ocampa. Outnumbered, outgunned, their final stronghold crumbling, this is truly humanity's last stand. Their fate hangs by a thread. In the cold darkness of space, a grizzled old soldier and his small crew of misfits race against time and overwhelming odds, carrying the flickering flame of an entire species, ready to ignite the fires that will either drive back the darkness or be snuffed out forever. Nolan clutched the armrests of the captain's chair as the stealthed transport ship slipped through the Ocampa blockade, the proximity alarms blaring. Sweat beaded on his brow, his heart hammering against his ribs. One wrong move, one sensor ping, and they'd be blasted to atoms. "Easy," he muttered to the pilot, his voice tight. "Nice and steady." The other veterans in Nolan's hand-picked crew hunched over their stations, faces grim, nucleus tightening. They all knew the stakes, the razor's edge between salvation and oblivion they walked. The transport dove into Earth's shadow, engines dimmed, its black hull blending seamlessly against the void. Nolan let out a slow breath as the Ocampa ships receded behind them. They'd made it past the blockade, for now. But their harrowing journey was just the beginning. Ahead lay parsecs of enemy-controlled space to traverse, a deadly gauntlet of Ocampa patrols and sensor nets standing between them and their objective. A remote, lifeless moon, its location a closely guarded secret. The hidden resting place of humanity's last hope. As the transport hurtled through the silent stars, Nolan's thoughts turned to the ancient dreadnoughts waiting in their concealed bunkers. Mighty warships from a bygone age, locked away as a final recourse should the unthinkable happen. And now, With humanity on the brink of annihilation, their time had come. Nolan just prayed they were still intact after centuries of slumber. The moon appeared on their scopes, a desolate gray orb spinning slowly against the star-flecked canvas of space. The transport angled for a crater near the pitted equator, engines flaring as it sliced through the thin atmosphere. Touchdown. The ship settled onto the crater floor with a hiss of hydraulics, kicking up plumes of ash-like regolith. Nolan felt a strange mix of trepidation and awe as he stepped down the ramp, the airlock cycling behind him. His magnetic boots crunched against the powdery surface, every footfall an effort. Before them, camouflaged doors ground open in the crater walls, revealing the yawning maws of the underground bunkers housing the dreadnoughts. Nolan's breath caught in his throat as he caught his first glimpse of the massive ships, their hulls dark and cold, waiting to be reawakened. But there was no time to waste gawking. Nolan barked orders, directing his crew to their tasks. They had to work quickly, bringing the Dreadnought's archaic systems back online, running diagnostics, loading munitions, priming reactors. Every minute was precious, every delay flirting with disaster. As they labored frantically, an alarm blared through the crater. Proximity alert. Nolan's blood ran cold as he checked the scopes. An Ocampa patrol, sweeping in fast, weapons hot. They'd been discovered. "All hands, battle stations!" Nolan roared into the comm, sprinting for the bunker housing Dreadnought 1. "Ocampa incoming!" The crater erupted into chaos as the Ocampa ships screamed overhead, disgorging armored troops and hovering battle drones. Plasma bolts and rockets stitched the ashen ground, geysers of debris fountaining into the airless sky. Nolan's team scrambled to defend the Dreadnoughts, manning the few operational weapons they'd managed to bring online. Railgun emplacements chattered, missiles shrieked from launch tubes, beam weapons seared glowing paths through the void. But the Ocampa forces were relentless, waves of drones and soldiers surging forward, heedless of losses. Explosions bloomed among the bunkers as the invaders pressed their attack, slagging armor and sending jagged shrapnel scything through the vacuum. Nolan gritted his teeth as he poured fire into the Ocampa ranks, the acrid stench of overheated conductors filling the air. All around him, his men fought with grim desperation, but they were woefully outmatched. One by one, they fell, consoles sparking, life support alarms wailing. On the cratered surface, several of the Dreadnought bunkers crumpled under the Ocampa onslaught, the ancient ships inside blown apart before they could rise to fight. Nolan felt each loss like a blade to the gut. Every Dreadnought destroyed was a light of hope snuffed out. But he refused to let the pain, the rage, consume him. Pounding a fist on the fire control console, Nolan led his surviving crew in a furious counterattack, rallying them for one final stand. They had to buy more time, had to give the Dreadnoughts a chance. Even as the last of the automated defenses fell silent and Ocampa soldiers stormed the bunkers, Nolan and his men fought on, holding their ground to the bitter end. Plasma bolts and shrapnel tore through flesh and bone, the stink of blood and burnt circuitry choking the air. But their sacrifice was not in vain. With a thunderous rumble that shook the moon to its core, Dreadnought 1 surged to life. The colossal ship rose from its shattered bunker, ancient engines flaring, hull plates shuddering into place. Nolan, bleeding and half-blind, looked on in awe as the Dreadnought's weapon systems locked onto the Ocampa forces, target runes flashing across cracked hollow displays. A heartbeat later, the ship unleashed its first devastating salvo, a searing lance of destruction that cut a fiery swath through the Ocampa ranks. Landers crumpled like tin cans, soldiers vaporized by the thousands, the Dreadnought's unimaginable power scything through the enemy with terrifying ease. And more Dreadnoughts were rising to join the fight, shaking off centuries of dust, reactors pulsing with newly awakened fury. The tide was turning. The Ocampa assault faltered as the human warships brought their combined might to bear, the moon's skies lighting up with the ferocious exchange of world-shattering weapons fire. For the first time in the war, the Ocampa tasted bitter defeat, their vaunted war machine thrown back by the resurgent power of humanity's past. The Dreadnought fleet tore through space-time, emerging from warp in a brilliant flash of light. Nolan's eyes widened as he took in the chaotic scene before him. Earth hung in the void, a blue jewel besieged by swarms of Ocampa warships. The remnants of humanity's defense fleet fought desperately against overwhelming odds, their ships ablaze and breaking apart under relentless alien fire. "All ships, engage the enemy," Nolan barked into the comm. "Hit their rear lines hard and fast." The ancient human warships surged forward, their massive engines flaring. Weapons that had lain dormant for centuries roared to life, lances of searing energy and salvos of hypervelocity, projectiles tearing into the unprepared Ocampa formations. Alien ships crumpled and shattered, taken completely by surprise by the sudden assault. Nolan watched with grim satisfaction as the dreadnoughts carved a path of destruction through the Ocampa fleet. For the first time since the invasion began, the tide of battle was shifting. On the Ocampa flagship, Supreme Commander Pollux stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed. "Where did these human ships come from? What are they?" An aide approached, trembling. "Sir, our rear guard is in full retreat. These new vessels, their firepower and defenses far exceed anything we've encountered from the humans before." Pollux's eyes narrowed. He would not let victory slip from his grasp so easily. "Redirect all available ships to engage the newcomers," he ordered. "Concentrate fire on their lead vessels, and prepare boarding parties. I want prisoners for interrogation." The space around Earth erupted into chaos as the full might of the Ocampa armada turned to face the human dreadnoughts. Energy beams lashed back and forth. Missiles and torpedoes streaked across the void. Several of the ancient human warships succumbed to the overwhelming firepower, their hulls breached and reactors going critical in devastating explosions. But the dreadnoughts gave as good as they got. Their thick armor shrugged off hits that would have vaporized lesser ships, while their main guns blasted Ocampa cruisers apart with single shots. Nolan's fleet pressed on relentlessly towards Earth, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. As the space battle raged, the occupied cities of Earth erupted into violence. Resistance fighters who had been lying low for months burst into action, striking at Ocampa supply depots and communication centers. In New York, Tokyo, and a dozen other metropolises, the streets ran red with blood as human insurgents clashed with their alien oppressors. Maria Delgado, leader of the Chicago Resistance Cell, fired her plasma rifle at an Ocampa patrol, ducking back behind a burned-out car as return fire scorched the pavement around her. "Keep pushing," she shouted to her compatriots. "The fleet is coming. We just need to hold out a little longer." High above, Nolan saw his opportunity. With Pollux's forces fully engaged against the dreadnoughts, the blockade around Earth had thinned. "Charlie Group, break off and make for the surface," he commanded. "Provide air support for the resistance and begin civilian evacuation immediately." A dozen of the massive warships peeled away from the main battle, plunging into Earth's atmosphere trailing flames. Their point defense systems lit up the skies, swatting down Ocampa fighters and dropships as they established air superiority over major population centers. Pollux snarled in frustration as he watched the human counterattack unfold. There was only one way to salvage this situation now. "Prepare my shuttle," he growled to his staff. "I will lead the assault on their command ship myself." Moments later, a swarm of Ocampa boarding craft streaked towards Nolan's flagship, their hulls dripping with breaching charges and assault troops. Alarms blared throughout the massive dreadnought as the enemy forces latched onto the hull, cutting their way inside. Nolan grabbed a pulse rifle from a nearby weapons locker, his face set in steadfast perseverance. "All hands prepare to repel boarders," he announced over the ship-wide comm. "This is it, people. Everything we fought for comes down to this moment. Hold the line." The corridors of the ancient warship became a battleground as Ocampa shock troops poured in, exchanging fire with Nolan's crew. Deck by deck, compartment by compartment, humans and aliens clashed in brutal close-quarters combat. The fate of two species hung in the balance as the battle for Earth reached its climax. The Dreadnought shuddered as Ocampa boarding craft slammed into its hull, breaching charges detonating in rapid succession. Alarms blared throughout the ship as atmosphere vented into space. Nolan grabbed his comm unit. "All hands prepare to repel boarders. This is not a drill." Ocampa shock troops poured through the breaches, plasma weapons blazing. The corridors erupted into chaos as Nolan's crew scrambled to mount a defense. Marines in powered armor traded fire with the invaders at point-blank range, the cramped passageways filling with smoke and the scent of ozone. Nolan sprinted towards the bridge, ducking energy bolts that left scorch marks on the bulkheads. He skidded around a corner to find a squad of his troops pinned down by Ocampa fire. "On me!" he shouted, priming a frag grenade and hurling it at the alien position. The explosion sent the Ocampa reeling, and Nolan's men surged forward, securing the junction. All around the ship, similar scenes played out as humans and aliens clashed in vicious close-quarters combat. Blood and bodies littered the deck plates as the two sides fought for control of critical systems. On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Chen and a skeleton crew held off wave after wave of Ocampa boarding parties. Chen fired her railgun on full auto, the hypervelocity slugs punching through alien armor and internal bulkheads alike. "Hold the line!" she bellowed over the din of battle. "Captain Nolan is on his way!" Outside, the rest of the Dreadnought fleet moved to protect their vulnerable flagship. Massive energy beams lanced out, vaporizing Ocampa ships that strayed too close. But for every alien vessel destroyed, more took its place. Admiral Pollux watched the battle unfold from his command ship, a cruel smile playing across his features. "Press the attack," he ordered. "I'll finish this myself." The Ocampa leader donned his battle armor and gathered his most elite warriors. They boarded a heavily shielded assault craft and rocketed towards Nolan's crippled Dreadnought. On Earth's surface, the human resistance seized their chance. Maria Delgado led her Chicago cell in a daring raid on an Ocampa command post. They overwhelmed the alien defenders and captured vital intelligence on troop deployments. Similar scenes unfolded across the globe as humanity rose up against their oppressors. The streets of New York, London, and Beijing became urban battlegrounds. Human guerrillas ambushed Ocampa patrols and sabotaged their supply lines. Fresh troops and weapons poured from the newly landed dreadnoughts, bolstering the resistance. For the first time since the invasion, the aliens found themselves on the defensive. But aboard Nolan's flagship, the situation grew dire. Inch by bloody inch, Pollux's forces fought their way towards the bridge. Bodies piled up in corridors and lift shafts as neither side gave ground. Nolan rallied his dwindling crew for a final stand. "We hold here," he said, grit etched on his face. "Earth is counting on us." The bridge blast doors buckled under sustained Ocampa fire. As they finally gave way, Pollux himself strode through the breach, energy blade humming. "Nolan," the alien leader roared, "face me and decide the fate of our species." The two commanders clashed in furious combat, trading blows amid the wreckage of the bridge. Their duel became a brutal, desperate struggle, fists and feet and blades a blur of motion. Around them, human and Ocampa forces battled for control of the ship's systems. A young ensign managed to bypass the damaged fire control circuits, bringing the main guns back online. The targeting computer locked onto the heart of the Ocampa fleet. One word from Nolan could end the invasion then and there. But as he turned to give the order, Pollux's blade found its mark. Both leaders collapsed to the deck, gravely wounded. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance as Nolan struggled to speak, to utter the command that would save humanity. Ensign Jacob Kemper sprang into action. Plasma bolts sizzled past his head as he dove for the command console, his fingers flying across the controls. Sweat beaded on his brow as he inputted the firing sequence for the Dreadnought's main weapons. "Particle lances charged and ready," he shouted. "Firing now." The bridge shuddered as titanic energies surged through the ship. Outside, space itself seemed to warp as lances of pure destruction erupted from the Dreadnought's spinal batteries. The beams sliced through the Ocampa formation, shields flaring and failing in rapid succession. Alien warships vanished in blinding flashes, reduced to scattered atoms in an instant. Kemper's eyes widened at the devastation displayed on the tactical screens. A massive hole had been torn in the heart of the Ocampa Armada, their once impenetrable lines now in tatters. "All ships, this is Dreadnought 1, Kemper broadcast, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Concentrate fire on the breach. Take them apart." The rest of the human fleet responded with brutal efficiency. Dreadnoughts unleashed salvo after salvo into the gap, their massive guns reducing Ocampa capital ships to twisted wreckage. Smaller human vessels darted through the debris fields, harrying the alien flanks with precision strikes. On Earth's surface, the tide of battle shifted dramatically. Maria Delgado led her resistance fighters through the rubble-strewn streets of Chicago, plasma rifles blazing. Ocampa troops fell back in disarray, caught between the humans' ground assault and the Dreadnought's relentless orbital bombardment. "Push them back!" Maria shouted, gunning down an alien officer. "Freedom for Earth!" Similar scenes played out across the globe. In the skies above New York, London, and Beijing, Ocampa ships frantically tried to retreat. Many were caught in the crossfire, destroyed by the combined firepower of human ground defenses and the orbiting dreadnoughts. Back on the bridge, Kemper worked feverishly to stabilize Captain Nolan. He pressed a Medi-Seal patch to the gaping wound in Nolan's chest, praying it would be enough to keep him alive. "Hang in there, sir," Kemper muttered, his hands slick with blood. "We're turning this around." A nearby console chimed, and Kemper's head snapped up. The tactical display showed a new threat: Ocampa ships launching a barrage of high-yield warheads towards Earth's population centers. "Anti-missile batteries, full spread," Kemper ordered, his voice cracking. "Don't let a single one through." The Dreadnought's point defense systems roared to life, filling space with a web of interceptor fire. Ocampa missiles detonated harmlessly in the upper atmosphere, their deadly payloads neutralized. Across the bridge, Supreme Commander Pollux stirred, his alien features contorted in pain and rage. He activated his personal communicator, hissing orders to his remaining forces. "Fall back," Pollux growled. "Regroup at Rally Point Omega. We will crush these humans once and for all." As the Ocampa fleet began its retreat, Kemper saw his chance. He targeted the withdrawing ships, catching several between the hammer of the dreadnoughts and the anvil of Earth's resurgent defenses. Alien vessels shattered under the onslaught, unable to escape the humans' fury. With the immediate threat abated, Kemper turned his full attention to saving Nolan's life. He keyed the ship-wide comm system. "This is Acting Captain Kemper. I need an emergency medical team to the bridge now. Captain Nolan is down. Repeat, Captain Nolan is down." Kemper looked out at the stars, his palms sweating from the events of the past few hours. He had gone from a lowly ensign to commanding humanity's most powerful warship, all in the course of a single brutal battle. As he watched the remnants of the Ocampa fleet fleeing into the darkness of space, Kemper knew the war was nowhere near the end. He straightened his uniform, steadying himself for the challenges ahead. The fate of humanity now rested on his young shoulders, and Jacob Kemper was ready to face whatever the Ocampa Empire would throw at them next. Kemper's hands trembled as he gripped the command console, watching the remnants of his fleet limp back towards Earth. The bridge of his flagship, the Intrepid, buzzed with frantic activity as damage reports flooded in. Acrid smoke filled the air, stinging his eyes and throat. "Status report," he barked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Lieutenant Ramirez, her uniform scorched and torn, stepped forward. "Sir, we've lost the Defiant and the Valiant. The Resolute and Dauntless are heavily damaged but still operational. Our own shields are at 12%, and we've got hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Kemper nodded, his fists tight. "Casualties?" "Still coming in, sir. Initial estimates are high." The weight of command pressed down on Kemper's shoulders. He thought of all the men and women who'd followed him into this bold strategy. How many had paid the ultimate price for his decision? "Sir," Ramirez continued, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Zhao." Kemper steeled himself. "Put him through!" The grizzled face of Admiral Zhao appeared on the main view screen. his expression a mix of anger and concern. "Ensign Kemper, what the hell were you thinking? You left Earth virtually defenseless." "Admiral, Save it," Zhao cut him off. "Get your ass back here now. We've got reports of renewed Ocampa activity in the outer system. They could strike at any moment." The transmission cut off abruptly. Kemper turned to his crew, seeing the exhaustion and fear etched on their faces. "You heard the man. Let's go home." As the battered fleet limped back to Earth, Kemper retreated to his quarters. He sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. The adrenaline of battle faded, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. A soft chime at his door roused him. "Enter," he called out. Dr. Eliza Chen, the ship's chief medical officer, stepped inside. Her normally pristine lab coat was stained with blood and grime. "Ensign, Jacob, I thought you should know. Captain Nolan is out of surgery. It was touch and go, but he's stable for now." Kemper felt a glimmer of hope. "Can I see him?" Chen shook her head. "He's still unconscious. It'll be a while before he's fit for duty, if ever." The implications of her words hung heavy in the air. Kemper was still in command, for better or worse. "Thank you, Doctor," he said softly. Chen nodded and left, leaving Kemper alone with his thoughts. Hours later, the fleet approached Earth orbit. Kemper stood on the bridge, watching his homeworld grow larger on the console. The continents below bore angry red scars, the aftermath of Pollux's retaliatory strikes. "Sir," Ramirez reported, "we're picking up multiple incoming signatures. Ocampa ships, at least a dozen. They're on an attack vector." Kemper's exhaustion vanished in an instant. "Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. We may be battered, but we're not beaten. Let's show these bastards what humanity is made of." The crew sprang into action, their movements sharp despite their fatigue. Weapon systems powered up as shields flickered to life. Kemper gripped the arms of his command chair, his eyes fixed on the approaching enemy. "Weapons free," he ordered. "Let's give them hell." Kemper's hands gripped the arms of his command chair as the Indomitable shuddered under another barrage of Ocampa fire. The bridge view screen flickered, displaying the chaos of battle unfolding before them. "Status report," Kemper barked, his eyes fixed on the swirling melee of human and alien ships. Lieutenant Ramirez's fingers danced across her console. "Forward shields at 23%, sir. We've lost the Valiant and Thunderchild. The Resolute reports heavy damage but is still in the fight." Kemper nodded, his fists tight. "Keep pressing. We need to draw their attention." The Indomitable's main batteries roared to life, lancing out at the Ocampa picket lines. Explosions blossomed in the void as alien ships disintegrated under the onslaught. "Sir, incoming fighter wings," Ramirez shouted. Kemper leaned forward. "Launch our strike craft. Have them screen us and engage those fighters." A swarm of human ships erupted from the Indomitable's launch bays, racing to meet the Ocampa threat. The two groups clashed in a furious dogfight, energy weapons flashing as fighters on both sides were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. On the bridge of his command ship, Supreme Commander Pollux surveyed the battle with growing unease. His tentacles writhed as he issued rapid-fire orders to his subordinates. "Tighten our formation," he hissed. "Concentrate fire on their flagship. We'll break their offensive here and now." The Ocampa fleet shifted, overlapping energy fields creating an impenetrable wall of force. Mass drivers unleashed a storm of hyper-accelerated projectiles, pummeling the human dreadnoughts. Kemper gritted his teeth as the Indomitable rocked under the assault. Warning klaxons blared as system after system reported damage. "Sir, we can't take much more of this," Ramirez warned. "We hold," Kemper said, his voice steady, "for Earth." As the titanic clash raged on, a shadow detached itself from the vast debris field at the system's edge. Captain Nolan stood on the bridge of the Relentless, leading a strike force of refurbished dreadnoughts on a daring flanking maneuver. "Steady as she goes," Nolan murmured, guiding his ships through treacherous currents of space-time. "Nice and easy." The human vessels threaded their way through chunks of rock and metal, their stealth systems masking them from Ocampa sensors. At one heart-stopping moment, the fleet skirted dangerously close to a dormant black hole, the fabric of space twisting around them. Nolan's fingers tightened as he gripped the helm. "Hold together, old girl," he whispered to his ship. With agonizing slowness, the strike force emerged behind the Ocampa armada. Pollux's massive flagship hung before them, engines glowing as it directed the alien assault. "Targeting solutions locked," Nolan's weapons officer reported. "Ready to fire on your command." Nolan allowed himself a grim smile. Let him have it. The human dreadnoughts opened fire as one, their synchronized broadsides catching the Ocampa completely by surprise. The flagship's engines erupted in a series of cataclysmic explosions, venting atmosphere and debris into space. Pollux stumbled as his ship bucked beneath him. What in the name of the ancestors? Before the Ocampa could react, Nolan pressed his advantage. His ships tore into the enemy formation, guns blazing. Alien vessels frantically tried to reposition, but the sudden assault had shattered their cohesion. Back on the Indomitable, Kemper saw his chance. "All ships, push forward! Don't let up!" The battered human fleet surged ahead, catching the Ocampa in a vicious crossfire. Kemper watched with fierce satisfaction as alien ships crumbled under the combined assault. Pollux snarled in fury, tentacles lashing. "Withdraw, regroup, and crush these vermin!" The Ocampa armada began a fighting retreat, leaving expendable ships behind as a rear guard. Nolan's dreadnoughts found themselves suddenly under heavy fire as the bulk of the alien fleet turned to face them. "Evasive maneuvers," Nolan ordered as enemy ships closed in. "We've done our part. Time to—" His words were cut off as a massive explosion rocked the Relentless. Nolan staggered, smoke filling the bridge. "Report." "Direct hit, sir," his XO coughed. "We've lost main power. Ocampa suicide ships incoming." Nolan's mind raced. They'd inflicted massive damage, but now found themselves in mortal peril. He keyed the fleet-wide comm. "All ships, break off and scatter. Emergency jump protocols now." The human dreadnoughts peeled away, their vectors shifting wildly as they prepared to flee. Ocampa vessels gave chase, eager to finish off their wounded prey. Pollux leaned forward, anticipation gleaming in his alien eyes. "We have them. Pursuit units, close in and—" He froze as new contacts suddenly blazed across his tactical displays. Hundreds of ships were appearing from nowhere, emerging from carefully hidden positions throughout the system. "Impossible," Pollux breathed as the full scope of the humans' deception became clear. The battle was just getting started. The void erupted with blinding flashes as hundreds of human dreadnoughts materialized from their stealth trajectories. Kemper's hidden fleet, scattered across the outer system, sprang to life. Their weapons blazed, unleashing a devastating barrage on the unsuspecting Ocampa armada. On the bridge of his flagship, Pollux's eyes widened in shock. His tactical displays lit up with a storm of new contacts, human warships appearing from seemingly nowhere. "Impossible!" he hissed, tentacles writhing in agitation. "Where did they come from?" Before his officers could respond, the first salvo struck home. Ocampa ships shuddered and broke apart under the onslaught, caught completely off guard by the multi-vector assault. Focused fire from human dreadnoughts tore through weak points in the alien formation, rupturing whole squadrons with surgical precision. Aboard the Indomitable, Kemper seized his moment. "All ahead full! Target their rear guard and punch through!" The massive human flagship surged forward, its heaviest guns thundering. Ocampa vessels crumpled under the barrage, clearing a path for Kemper's assault. In the Indomitable's wake, other human ships followed, exploiting every gap blasted in the reeling alien fleet. Pollux's command ship, now venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches, turned its remaining weapons on the encroaching human forces. Its turrets spat fury, vaporizing several smaller vessels that strayed too close. "Keep them back," Pollux roared. "Concentrate all fire on their flagship." But it was too late. Nolan's squadron dove into the fray, particle lances carving molten gashes through the alien behemoth's armor. The Ocampa vessel shuddered under the precision strikes, whole sections of its hull peeling away. Nolan gripped his command chair as his flagship narrowly evaded a salvo of antimatter warheads. The fabric of space-time twisted around them as they skimmed the event horizon of a nearby singularity, using its immense gravity to alter their trajectory. "Hold on!" Nolan shouted as the ship's inertial dampeners strained to compensate. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed they might be pulled into the cosmic maw. Then, with a final burst from its engines, Nolan's Dreadnought broke free, roaring back towards Pollux's crippled vessel. On the burning bridge of his dying flagship, Pollux watched in despair as his fleet disintegrated around him. Human dreadnoughts methodically picked apart the scattered Ocampa formations, while others moved to surround his command ship. A crackling transmission cut through the chaos. "Ocampa flagship, this is Captain Nolan of Earth Forces. Your fleet is destroyed. Surrender now, and we will spare your lives." Pollux snarled, smashing the comm panel with a tentacle. "Never! We do not yield to lesser beings." Minutes later, Nolan himself stood before the alien warlord, boarding parties having fought their way through the wreckage of Pollux's ship. The Ocampa leader glared at the human captain with hatred in his alien eyes. "It's over, Pollux," Nolan said firmly. "Your invasion has failed. Earth is free." Pollux's shoulders sagged, the fight finally draining from him. "Then let it end," he rasped. "Grant me an honorable death, human." Nolan nodded grimly, raising his sidearm. With Pollux's demise, the remaining cohesion of the Ocampa armada evaporated. Cut off from Central Command, alien captains either fled or surrendered, their ships picked off by pursuing human dreadnoughts. On Earth's ravaged surface, resistance cells emerged from hiding, seizing control of Ocampa garrisons as news of the space battle spread. The alien occupation forces, leaderless and isolated, had no choice but to lay down their arms. In orbit, Kemper and Nolan's ships regrouped, battered, but victorious. They surveyed the destruction around them, the price of freedom written in twisted metal and vaporized hulls. But amidst the carnage, a flicker of hope burned. Humanity had prevailed against impossible odds. Kemper opened a channel to all ships. "This is Acting Captain Kemper. The immediate threat has been neutralized, but our work is not nearly finished. We must secure our hard-won victory and pursue the Ocampa back to their own territory. Prepare for..." Admiral Kemper stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, his eyes scanning the tactical displays as the Dreadnought fleet pushed deeper into Ocampa-held space. The liberation of human colonies had been a grueling campaign, each victory hard-won against the remnants of Pollux's forces. "Sir, we're approaching the Epsilon Eridani system," Lieutenant Ramirez reported. "Long-range scans show minimal Ocampa presence." Kemper nodded, his face etched with the weariness of constant battle. "Proceed with caution. We can't afford to let our guard down." As the fleet entered the system, alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. Ramirez's hands flew over her console. "Multiple contacts, Ocampa ships, hundreds of them." Before Kemper could react, space itself seemed to ignite. Beams of coherent energy lanced out from hidden emplacements, slicing through the human ship's shields like they weren't there. Kemper watched in horror as dreadnoughts began to break apart under the assault. "Evasive maneuvers!" he shouted. "All ships, scatter formation!" But it was too late. The Ocampa forces, led by the ruthless Keras, had sprung their trap with devastating efficiency. New weapons, unseen before, tore through armor plating and reactor cores. Human ships exploded in silent bursts of light and debris. Aboard his flagship, Nolan's voice crackled over the comms. "Kemper, we can't win this. We need to retreat." Kemper gritted his teeth, watching as more of his fleet vanished from tactical displays. "Agreed. All ships, prepare for emergency jump." As the surviving dreadnoughts began to disengage, Nolan's voice came again. "I'll cover your retreat. Get our people out of here." Before Kemper could protest, Nolan's ship surged forward, guns blazing. It plowed into the heart of the Ocampa formation, drawing their fire. Kemper watched in disbelief as Nolan's dreadnought erupted in a massive explosion, taking Kiras's flagship with it, in a blast of blinding radiation. The shock of Nolan's sacrifice hit Kemper like a physical blow. He staggered, gripping his command chair for support. "Status report," he managed to choke out. Ramirez's voice was thick with emotion. "Fleet strength down to 30%, sir, but we're clear of the kill zone." As the remnants of the human fleet limped away from the ambush site, a new alert sounded. Kemper looked up to see fresh data scrolling across the main view screen. His blood ran cold as he realized the true scope of the Ocampa deception. "They've outflanked us," he whispered. "A massive force is already en route to Earth." The weight of command settled on Kemper's shoulders like a mountain. He closed his eyes, knowing the choice before him would haunt him for the rest of his days. But there was no other option. "Plot a course for Earth," he ordered. "Maximum speed. We're going home."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.